So SpaceX is doing the biggest IPO launch in history, and I decided to analyze its most important document, the S-1 filing document that describes the business model of SpaceX, how it works, and so on. And I did this using the Infranodus knowledge graph that represents text as a network, so you can see the main concepts, how they relate to one another. And why it's useful is because it gives you a really good overview of the main topics inside this document. It shows you how they relate to one another. So you can click on one of them and see how it relates to the other one, use the built-in AI to question this relation. But then, most importantly, you can also see the gaps. So what are the topics that are not well connected? And this can help you make up your own mind about what they actually missed from the document, what we're not seeing when we read it. So I thought I will demonstrate to you how I use Infranodus and knowledge graphs in order to analyze documents like this. So first of all, I just take the actual document here, I copy and paste the content into Infranodus by generating a new graph, and then I see something like this when it loads. And what this shows me are the main topical clusters in this document. So I can see directly that SpaceX is talking about its business model based on space AI. So they basically want to build AI in space, and they link it very closely to profitability metrics, so how they will make money on that, right? And then there is a lot of different clusters on cash flow, on common stock, on financial operations, and so on. So this gives you a kind of nice general idea of what this document is actually talking about. But my favorite part is to look into the smaller topics. So the latent topics here are the financial operations and board conflicts. And this directly indicates to me something that I could explore and that I could point my attention on. Because I know, of course, that they will be talking about launching satellites into space and creating the whole infrastructure. But what about this smaller cluster on board conflicts? So I click this cluster here, and then I click AI question selected topic to see what is the question that I can use to approach this whole document from this perspective, from the perspective of board conflicts. And for example, here it says directly, how does Musk's power to shape board service and cross-affiliate directorships influence conflicts of interest in employee-related decisions, especially where SpaceX AI talent, resource allocation, and fiduciary duties intersect. So it's basically his involvement into Tesla and how he's also building an AI company in Tesla, whether he's gonna make Tesla not AI at all anymore, or, you know, how is that gonna work? And that's an interesting question to actually ask yourself and to explore. And then another thing that I like when I look at the graph is that I'm also asking myself, okay, what is actually not here yet? So for example, I don't see anything about ecology or ecological impact. And actually, if you look at the concepts and you also try to see everything, like you see there's a lot about technology, AI, satellites, and so on, but nothing too much about the ecological impact. And that's very important because I don't know if you know, but there is this huge problem that is coming up right now, that when the satellites fall after being decommissioned, they actually produce aluminium particles into atmosphere, destroying ozone layer. So that's not only bad for environment, but you might also have problems as a company when this becomes a real issue, because suddenly you will not be able to create such a big constellation of satellites in space. So this is another issue, and that's why the graphs are nice, because you can kind of see what's there, but you can also clearly see what's not there and what should be there. So that would be another aspect to explore, I think. So another very interesting feature is to look at the gaps, at the structural gaps in this document, and to see whether we can generate some interesting questions that could connect them together. So for example, let's look into this cluster, space AI and common stock. Right? And then if we click send to AI here, then it's going to generate an interesting question for us that links these two clusters together that have a gap at the moment, and then generates an interesting question for us that we can either think about ourselves or send it back to the document. So for example, here it says, how might SpaceX design a common stock and convertible share governance structure that prices orbital AI compute and satellite service agreements into the same equity base, aligning XAI model growth, segment reporting, and long-term redemption expectations. So basically linking the stock structure to its AI ambitions. And we can send this question back to the document so that we can then see if there is anything inside this document that can answer that question, that links those two clusters that are not well connected yet. So then we can explore it in this way. So here it generates a long answer for us, which says that the statement links two different assets into one equity story: physical AI infrastructure in space and the legal machinery of common stock. And then it says its real point is not just SpaceX does AI in orbit, it's how you turn speculative, capital-heavy space compute into something investors can own, price, and govern. And so that reveals a very interesting gap, because yes, we do have a story about how AI is going to be developed in space, but there is not so much explanation about how it actually converts into value. And more importantly, how will the stakeholders and shareholders actually have any effect on the decisions that are taken in this regard? Because as you probably know, this filing also says that Elon Musk is going to have full control of the company. You as a shareholder will not be able to participate in decisions so much. So that's an interesting question also to explore. Is it actually too risky to let one person control everything and not to have to respond to anyone or anything? So that's an open question, and here is what this idea somehow is proposing us to think of. And I think it's pretty interesting because you can then start exploring this document not using the table of contents that it provides itself, you know, where it's just giving you a standard structure, but rather looking at the topics, concepts, and gaps that you find relevant to your particular interests or some questions that you have, and then generate some interesting ideas from it. So I just wanted to share it with you because I think it's a pretty interesting approach to use graphs to analyze content of documents this way. And if you want to go further, you can even go inside Infranodus, type in SpaceX, and then see what people on X or Twitter are saying about this topic. So you can simply create a new graph, and then it's going to import the most popular tweets of the last 24 hours, and then show you what people are actually talking about. And what I like is to actually see how it correlates with the actual filing. So as you can see here, a lot of people are talking about index inclusion, proxy exposure, even some crypto tokens as usual, but there's nothing about the actual questions that are even raised in the document itself. So that tells us that the market sentiment is largely driven by the expectations of profit or collapse, but not so much dealing with the fundamentals of this offering. So that's also a really nice approach to do, to visualize the actual document, the filing document, and then to see what people are actually talking about. And then you will see how it's different and how they're maybe not really covering the topics and the ideas that should be covered when we're thinking about this IPO. Let me know what you think about this, and also if you're not subscribed yet, please hit subscribe so that this video can get recommended to other people interested in the same content. Thank you.